In this video, we are going to talk about Eurostar Class 373. The train in question is the Eurostar 373,018, one of many Eurostar Class 373 trains that started operating in 1994. Capable of speeds up to 186 miles per hour, the Class 373 were specifically designed to transport passengers between London, Paris, and Brussels via the Channel Tunnel. Since 2016, however, many 373s have been withdrawn or scrapped, despite just 22 or 23 years in service. Eurostar 373,018 is officially in storage, but the word abandoned seems more appropriate. Branches from nearby trees now reach out and touch its windows. Weeds rise up from the rusting tracks on which it sits. Graffiti covers what were once the clean lines of the train's streamlined form. It looks like the kind of place where Rick Grimes would butcher a bunch of zombies, or where Mad Max would go shopping if he wanted to buy a train. Respected French newspaper Le Figaro reported in mid-January that Eurostar was at risk of being declared bankrupt and that without new funds being injected, this could happen in the coming months. The imposition of new and stricter lockdowns in both the UK and France post-Christmas led passenger numbers to fall even further on the few services Eurostar was operating. Multiple press reports on both sides of the channel reported discussions between French Transport Minister Jean-Baptiste Djebari and British Transport Secretary Grant Shapps on the subject, but by early February it had become apparent that both governments thought Eurostar was the other's problem, albeit for differing reasons. The French government considered it a British issue because Eurostar is based in London. Albeit majority owned by SNCF, French Railways, the British believed it was a French problem as the UK has no ownership stake and SNCF controls the company. Whatever the merits of these positions, they ignore the shared interest both countries will have after the pandemic has passed in a carbon-neutral high-capacity transport link between their respective capitals. UK Transport Secretary Grant Shapps appeared by video link before the House of Commons Transport Committee on 3 February. Asked about the status of his discussions with Mr. Djebari, Mr. Shapps said that as a majority French state-owned company, the onus on rescuing Eurostar lay with SNCF and its owner, the French government. Whilst Mr. Shapps said the UK government was very keen for Eurostar to survive, it was not our company to rescue, as the British government had sold its shares to others, then vaguely mentioning some of those others as being in Quebec, Canada. Mr. Shapps was referring to the sale of the British government's 40% stake in Eurostar in 2015 for £757 million to the Anglo-Canadian consortium Patina Rail LLP, comprising Caisse de dépôt et placement du Québec, 30%, and the British company Hermes Infrastructure, 10%. The other shares in Eurostar are held by the French 55% and Belgian 5% state railways. What the future holds for this high-speed train is anyone's guess. So far, 18 of the 373 class trains have been sent to be scrapped by European Metal Recycling (EMR) at Kingsbury in the West Midlands region of England. Others have been scrapped in France. 3 have ended up in museums or colleges, and some lucky 373s have been refurbished and remain in service. Eurostar 373,018, however, remains in storage in the north of France, a fine nesting place for birds, an interesting canvas for graffiti artists, and an intriguing landmark for train enthusiasts, eagle-eyed users of Google Earth, and urban explorers like Adkaz, whose video exploration of the train you can check out on YouTube. And if you're wondering why these 373s were abandoned and not reused elsewhere, well, it seems like a few factors were in play. Technology had simply moved on, leaving these 22-year-old trains out of date. The shared interest both countries will have, after the pandemic has passed, in a carbon-neutral, high-capacity transport link between it was also more cost-efficient to bring in a modern fleet rather than overhaul these existing trains, especially as the replacements had a greater seating capacity, meaning more money over less time. In the end, therefore, many of the 373s were deemed life-expired. Update as of November 2019. It's believed that the engine is no longer at the site. The cars, however, still remain. The Class 373 was designed and built for use on the Eurostar high-speed rail services between the UK, France, and Belgium through the Channel Tunnel. The sets are part of the TGV family, but have a smaller cross-section to fit within the smaller loading gauge on the UK network. The class is capable of operating on 25 kV AC, 3000 VDC, and 1500 VDC overhead power, and was originally capable of running from 750 VDC third rail 2, but this is no longer in use. Two types were built, some with 18 coaches and 2 power cars called 3 capital sets, and some with 14 coaches and 2 power cars, which were to be used for north of London services to Manchester and elsewhere, which never transpired. The class was also briefly used on East Coast Main Line services with GNER, but due to power supply restrictions limiting how many could operate at once and other issues, they were withdrawn from the route in 2005. The 373 still operate on UK to Europe transcontinental services, and some are also in use on the continent. Mr. Shaps did say the UK wanted to be as helpful as possible and suggested UK export finance might be available in some way to assist a rescue package. Former rail manager Chris Loader, now MP for West Dorset, who led the questioning concerning Eurostar, pushed Mr. Shaps to spell out what would happen if Eurostar's shareholders don't find additional money, to be told again it was not ours to rescue. And then, rather bizarrely, Mr. Shaps suggested that if Eurostar was to become insolvent, that the thing that is run by Eurostar is still there, regardless of what happens. In reality, if Eurostar was to cease trading for any lengthy period, the replacement operator, if there was one, would need to obtain trains, new licenses and safety case approvals, and given the ongoing disagreement between the UK and the EU over future governance for the Channel Tunnel, PA79, last month, which Mr. Shaps also confirmed remained unresolved, this would probably be a lengthy process. As Eurostar struggles, the airline industry has been given financial support by the British government through schemes such as the COVID-19 Corporate Financing Facility, CTFF, and the Coronavirus Business Interruption Loan Scheme, CBILS. In March 2020, Eurostar used all its existing £115 million credit facility and has since agreed both deferrals and other debt repayments, £65 million pushed back to 2022 to 26, and new medium-term debt facilities of €155 million and £210 million, which are due for repayment by mid-2022. These allowed repayment of the original £115 million revolving credit facility, but still leave the company with up to £300 million of additional debt compared to 2019. If you like the video, please like and share. Thanks for watching.